All right, hey everyone, it's Lumen, coming from my Vegas hotel room on the Strip. I'm here on Tuesday morning, past midnight on Tuesday morning, and I meant to get started on this a lot earlier and then didn't. So here we go, recapping my experience at WSBG so far. Excuse the bit of mess behind me on the beds if the camera goes down there. So Sunday was the first day of WSBG, and I got in at 4:30 a.m. I took a bus from LA. Uh, Turns out that's not a great decision if you want to be awake all day, but more on that later. I was excited to watch the Premier League games at 6 a.m. because there were a bunch of really good ones, but even the Caesars Sportsbook, and I walked around across a lot of sportsbooks in the middle of the Strip here, and only the Caesars book even had promise of showing Premier League at 6 a.m., and they didn't get the best games. Notably, Tottenham Arsenal wasn't showing on American television, so the only one that I got to watch was Brighton Bournemouth, which was fine. It's a good game, but I wanted to see like 4 Premier League games at once on the Caesars Sportsbook. Like you can watch 8 NFL games at once. Who doesn't want to see that for a different sport that you like? But anyway, that was a good way to pass a couple hours, and I got to go to registration for the event at 8 a.m., and that was before getting breakfast and then going to Terraforming Mars, my first event, at 9 a.m. on Sunday. So here goes a quick recap of my Terraforming Mars games. The structure was 4 rounds. If you keep winning, you need to win in order to advance, and they're making the player counts adjusted in order to make that happen. So, round one was a 4 player game. There were 141 players signed up, which means that there are going to be 2 rounds of 4 and 2 rounds of 3. Um, so, they decided to make round one 4 player, and they wanted a 4 player final. So, the round player counts were going to be 4, 3, 3, 4. So, round one, 4 player game. I end up playing Point Luna. This is base and prelude only, and everyone gets 1 prelude corporation and 2 base corporations to choose from. And we're playing base map, regular milestones and awards. So it's mayor, gardener, standard, base stuff. And the problem with that is that Tharsis, notably, is excellent, and the player across diagonally from me was the other, let's say, experienced player at the table, Bob, had Tharsis. My Point Luna, even with an Earth office, felt pretty far behind as Bob raced up to 20 points of milestones and awards. Another player played Immigrant City and Pets in round two, and I don't know if I said "oh no" out loud or if I was really just thinking it in my head over and over, but it's very scary. Um, that game, I got barely enough juice throughout the mid game, and I was saving up a big animal play towards the end game, but I hadn't found an animal card yet, and I think with what ended up being 2 generations left to go, I find livestock, thankfully. I need to find plant production to make it happen, but then I find insects, so I end up getting cows, and with 2 rounds of cows, 2 regular ones, I end up with 10 cows after a large convoy and imported nitrogen and hydrogen, I think. I ended up with those with Point Luna, so that was nice. I end up winning by 78 to 76. Thank you, livestock. So that got me to escape round one of the Terraforming Mars tournament, and I was on to round two. Round two was a 3 player game, as I said earlier. I ended up playing Valley Trust against Chongqing Mars and a Helion player, and Helion players are usually the less experienced players. This game, I got away with things semi-regularly. There was a round, in rounds 2 and 3, one of the players was asking people how many cards we were having to be ready to contest planner when necessary. And then that player passed kind of early, spending all their money in the round they were start player. I was start player after them. They didn't ask my cards, but I took planner on the first move of the next round. So that was kind of fortunate for me, and an example of how that table was going for basically the whole game. They weren't super hard on terraforming. I default to not doing that either, and I'm pretty good at engine building. I got my space discounts, and my notes say I won 111 to 70 to 68. So that was good. The bad side of things is these were pretty long games, and I don't know if I believe my notes at this point, but my notes say that this round ended for the last table at around 5:30 p.m., which would be 8.5 hours after the event started. And yeah, I'm not sure I believe that note really, because I want to say I had 3-hour games roughly, which is pretty slow. There is like trackers and stuff where everyone is very clear about what they're paying and whose turn it is, and that accounting takes a bit of extra time compared to just playing a little more casually and loosely. But it's good for competition to have that. But at this point, it had been 13 hours since I had been awake, and I was on lower sleep, and I was starting to feel tired, which is a great time to play a semifinal of Terraforming Mars. And in this 3-player semifinal, my first pick, AI Central, led me to take a very risky line. I first picked AI Central and second picked a Quantum Extractor in the first half of the draft. One of my corp options was Inventrix for a science tag, and because Planner is one of the base milestones, and the rest of my card draft didn't look great for any milestones, and I did find the Biolab Prelude with a science tag and 3 cards, I did the crazy Inventrix strategy that gives you terrible tempo early in order to claim Planner. And what I was thinking is that with 2 science tags from the corporation and the Prelude, and needing a 3rd science tag and 1 power production for AI Central, I had 6 free drawn cards from the Prelude and the Corp, and round 2 draft. So I had 16 cards to look at, right? 6 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 in the draft. No, I guess that last one in a 3-player game doesn't count. So I had 15 cards to look at to hope for 1 science tag and 1 power production. I find neither, unfortunately, but if I did find one or both of them, I could have gotten AI Central down in round 2 or like round 3. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and it took me until like Generation 5 to come out, and I was super far behind in the mid-game, having very little acceleration outside of some money production. So that was a pretty tough situation to be in. I had awful tempo. I got a lot of pity points from my opponents, and I think I deserved them. I think any good player could realize that my position was garbage, and I did manage to leverage that a tiny bit into sneaking in a good end game in some respects. But because my risky play for a super early AI Central didn't pay off, I did not win the semifinal. So I lost to Jack, who is a really great player, apparently very involved in the online Mars community. Awesome guy, cool to meet him. We have a couple shared connections, as it turns out, even though he's in England. So Jack won 78 to 71 to 65. Those scores, I think, are correct. I'm not completely sure, but they're at least very close to what actually happened. So, and that game was such a slog mentally. There were multiple points in that game where I could feel my brain just being turned off, and I had to go into my head and turn it back on again. It was super rough. The round ended around 9 p.m., at least for me, I want to say. So at that point, it had been 16 hours since I woke up on the bus, and 9 hours of Mars play, and that's a tough thing to do. I don't know how I would have ever done well in the final if I had even won. And Jack deserved it. I didn't really deserve to win that game based on losing my risk and yeah, just I wasn't mentally ready. I chose badly in getting an overnight bus from LA. And then got to my hotel, checked in, and fell asleep because I'm not staying at the same place because I found a slightly better deal nearby. So yeah, that was my Sunday. I'm gonna hit the end record and then record how today, Monday, went, even though it's technically Tuesday morning. All right, thanks.